Hi, this is Jason Fielder with the Daily Forex Report for July 26th. Currently looking at the U.S. Japanese yen pair. This particular pair formed an inside bar on Friday, did close lower, did gap up just a little bit on the open, but gaps typically go in the opposite direction of that they gap. So if this gapped up, we should look for it to move a little bit lower, at very least down to the previous Friday's close, which it has done so far. Now, as far as what we're looking for this pair to do, expect this pair to continue moving sideways with the bias that is sideways. I could very easily see it come back down to this what would now be support area. If it were to move higher, though, we could see it move. It's pretty much hit into previous over here, previous areas of support that would now be resistance. So I could very easily see it moving a little bit lower. Now look for this pair to move possibly as high as 95.77, possibly as low as 93.86. Look for some resistance around 95.30 and look for some support around 94.40 in this particular pair. Now switching to the Euro USD pair, this pair formed an inside bar also during Friday's session. Definitely look, did gap up, not sufficient enough to actually trigger a gap trade. However, we are looking for this pair to continue moving sideways with a bias that is sideways. Look for this pair to potentially move as high as 143.50, possibly as low as 140.48 in this pair. Look for some resistance around 142.56. and look for some support around 141.65 in this particular pair. Now switching to the pound US dollar pair, this pair continues to move sideways, did close down on Friday, did gap up a significant amount for around 41 pips. Definitely look for this pair to move lower, at very least down to Friday's previous close. Could get a little bit lower move. We'll just have to watch and see. Look for this pair to move potentially as high as 166.57, possibly as low as 162.77. Look for it to hit some resistance around 165.48 and look for some support around 163.90 in this particular pair. Now switching to the US Swiss, this pair also formed an inside bar during this last session. We are looking for this pair to continue moving sideways with the bias that is sideways. Look for this pair to possibly go as high as 1.0837, possibly as low as 105.98. Look for some resistance around 107.50 and look for some support around 106.56 in this particular pair. Now, we don't really have any significant news announcements till Wednesday, believe it or not, but I'm sure there are some minor news announcements, probably not ones that you'd want to pay attention to that actually move the market. But you know, if you're one of those traders who likes to look at every single piece of the news, of course, I'm sure there's stuff going on. I tend to lean a little bit heavier towards the more important things. Overload of information, I think, can be bad. But anyway, what am I looking for during this next session? The pound US dollar pair has been moving sideways. We did go up. We had some previous resistance that was tested here and here. And of course, you see the market has moved lower. It did test some support at this point. So I would look for this pair to break out. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can take the trend line like that, looking for a breakout to the downside, which would be a short around the 1.6429 area. You could also take this particular trend line, which is pretty steep. Both of these are pretty steep, and look for a buy at this point. Not sure what that price would be, probably around somewhere around the maybe the 16500 mark. You definitely want to look for it to go back to this point, which may or may not be enough pips. Most likely it wouldn't be enough because that'd be around the 50 mark. If it moves to the downside, we do have this point of support that you need to be aware of. Definitely go to break even at that point. But then as we come further down, we have other points of support that can possibly be triggered that we need to keep an eye on as this moves down. But these having numerous points at which we have potential support as it moves lower is a good thing. Most likely this pair would hit support around this level, and if it doesn't and bounce back at that point, we could look a little bit lower. But nice thing about that is you can move your stop accordingly down. Each time you hit one, just continue to lock in profit until you get a pullback. However, this pair has been moving sideways. It's been consolidating down to a large degree. If you draw your long-term trend lines, those ain't even not too long of a trend line. It's basically been going sideways, but if you draw some longer-term trend lines, you can see that this pair is getting to a point at which it should break out, in my opinion. So definitely look for that breakout to occur. Well, that about does it for today. Until next time, this is Jason Fielder. Good trading.